the parks, but not the schools, or I'll vote on this, I need that. But it doesn't go for that, because when the bonds are finally issued, they're not specifically earmarked for that project. In the county charter, or not the charter, excuse me, in the county code, if you go back and look at it, it says that we can use this money for anything we want. And I was like, oh, okay, that's how they're getting away with that. So if you vote against them issuing the debt, then that's the most powerful, the cheapest thing you can do is just to vote against it and tell everybody you know to vote against those. Now, typically in Baltimore County, 70% of the public votes for them because they don't know that their house is collateral for the debt. Why isn't Baltimore County mailing out a letter to every property tax owner and telling them, by the way, your house is going to be collateral debt to pay for these general obligation bonds? Then people would say, I'm not voting for that. The second thing you can do is the charter revision that we were talking about. It's going to be difficult to do that. Section 7 of the charter has a number of things that need to be changed. The handout that I gave you lists the two of them, the debt service and the other percentage that's on there. I forget what they call it now. But we tried to get them to change that, and I challenged Ted Venetoulis and that charter commission. I said, you guys are using borrowed money to pay operating expenses. And they said, what? Next month comes by and they refuted that, but I already did the homework. So this last most current bill, 6517, is an annual event that has to be voted on by the county council. And I read it, and for me, it was well written because I have been studying the subject, but it was kind of like reading a college paper that you hand into a finance teacher. It didn't have the specifics. It didn't have clarification on a lot of issues. We're worried about aliens or people moving into Baltimore County. They do a calculation per capita cost, $1,900 per capita, which by 2022 is going to be $2,300. But the per capita cost includes undocumented citizens. I'm not sure how to call it because I know a lot of people that are working in hospitals and are physicians that aren't full citizens yet. They shouldn't count. They should only count U.S. citizens, not people that are moving and coming and going. And that would make the debt per capita a lot higher. Another function they have on here on the first page, on page 11, it says debt outstanding as a percentage of total assessed property value. Well, that's kind of what Moody's wants everybody to do, all the states to use that calculation, and they've made a recommendation that to stay below 2.5%, you're going to be okay. But let's look at the assessed property value. I haven't done the exact calculation, but it might be as much as 10% of the property isn't even paying any taxes. So if you multiply, in this county, there's $85 billion worth of assessable property. They should really be multiplying this number against maybe 80 billion. So that's deceiving to put that number out there. But what it does is it allows Baltimore County to issue more debt. We met with the Sun Papers a couple of weeks ago, and we're trying to get a story moving because in a little bit of Sun Papers publicity the charter got had to do with some public officials giving themselves a big severance package, which would have been Kevin Kamenetz, Fred Homan, and a few more people, Sam Moxley, Vince Gardino. And that wasn't what that charter meeting was even about. It was about so much more than that. They can't even give themselves that severance package. But it just shows what Mike was saying, how they're continuing to rein in their control. I'm going to stick with the second hand. The hand of the second one on page 12 shows a graph that goes up and down. Now, as you know, Roger was county executive from 1990 to 1994, and you see that the debt service goes up high, but that was an honest number. When it falls down to 2000 and 2001, some things started to change. Moody's was saying, Baltimore County, you've got too much debt for your revenue you're collecting. So they decided, well, we'll make some adjustments. So around 2007, they went to Moody's and convinced Moody's that the pension investment debt could be self-supporting. So they would issue they would get these general obligation bonds at about 4%, 5%, and then they would reinvest it at maybe 8 or 10%, and then it wasn't a burden on the taxpayer. Risky. This was pointed out by a municipal advisor at T. Rowe Price, who doesn't want to be mentioned, so I'm not going to give you too many details, but they wrote a nice article online saying that Kamenetz has taken a risky pension bet because of the stock market's volatility and all the money they've risked out there may be additional debt that has to be paid back, and the only way they can pay it back is by collecting property taxes and income taxes. The income tax number that was mentioned earlier, that 3.5, is a number that came from the state of Maryland, and I still haven't spoken with them to find out, how did you come up with that number? Where is that happening? Because that's just not happening. So the reason I handed out these two pieces of paper is because these are the two triggers that I'm fighting to challenge. I'm challenging the debt ceiling of 10%. It should be more like 8% in the charter, because the 10% is something that Moody's threw out there. And the other figure with the debt outstanding as assessed property value needs clarification. What's the true amount of revenue you're collecting? The bill that you have, 6517, that thing is a good document. That is slick work. It gives the county executive and Fred Homan absolute control of the checkbook. There's a code in Baltimore County that if you're going to issue a $25,000 or more bill or an expense, you got to get the whole council to vote on it. Well, this document circumvents that. They're asking us to say, vote on this and let us spend $600 million however we want to. I can shorten it. So, what you can do is in November vote against these spending obligations, and because your home is collateral. Your home is collateral for this stuff, and they should be telling you that. I can shorten it like that.
Remember what we always told you, your home is your castle. Not theirs.
George P.
Thank you.
Give David a nice hand.